Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF World Champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 484 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by the former heavyweight world title challenger, the former number one ranked US heavyweight, Mr. Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week?
I'm doing good, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, my friend. Let's dive straight into the review part of the show. We're going to start here last Friday, January the 24th at the Ariake Arena in Tokyo, Japan. Over here we saw on the undercard Jin Sasaki move to 19-1 with a draw, a unanimous decision for him against Shoki Sakai, now 29-15 with 3 draws. That one for the Oriental and Pacific Boxing Federation and WBO Asia Pacific welterweight titles. Also on the card, the main event, the monster himself back in the ring. Naoya Inoue now 29-0, a KO for him in the 4th round against Yi Jun Kim, who's now 21-3 with 2 draws. That one for the undisputed super bantamweight world titles. Good performance from Inoue, but I don't want to get too carried away. You know, no one expected him to have any hard times with Yi Jun Kim. In all honesty, like I say, the guy was kind of thrown in as a replacement. So yeah, good performance from Inoue. Didn't put a foot wrong. Completely dominated him. Hurt him to the body a couple of times. And obviously, a lot of people are posting that knockout clip where he actually waved Inoue in as Inoue stopped him. So he waved him in, and then he goes okay, and ends up dropping him and stopping him. So it looked quite funny, in the clip when you watch it back. But like I say, Inoue starting the year nice and early. Hopefully, he has another busy year. He is one of the most active champions in the sport right now, active world champions, and I just want to see him, keep him busy like he does. And like I say, there's no reason really why we won't see him 3, maybe even 4 times this year. So 1 fight out the way, we should at least see him twice more this year for sure. But yeah, again, I'd like to see him move now up to featherweight. He's done everything at Super Bantam. Moving now then to the Nottingham Arena in Nottingham. This one was live on DAZN, obviously in the United Kingdom. I want to touch on the undercard briefly here. Ellie Scotney, she's now 10-0, a unanimous decision against the previously undefeated 20-0 Miyamoto, now 20-1. Of course, she loses her O. Like I say, unanimous decision there over 10-2s for Ellie Scotney. That one for the IBF, the IBO and the WBO Super Bantamweight World titles. Ellie Scotney herself was cut over her left eye in the first round from a head clash. But I have to say, on paper, it was really Scotney's toughest test as a pro, I would say. And like I say, it wasn't an ideal start, getting cut from a head clash. And that happened in the very first round. So credit to Scotney for absolutely dominating Miyamoto. For me, it was probably Scotney's best performance as a pro. There has been times, I think, in the past where Scotney has been a little bit kind of, she's won her fight, she's dominated, but it's not great TV sometimes watching Scotney. Like, I've kind of looked at it and thought, I'm not entirely sure if she is that good, or, I didn't kind of know what to make of it sometimes with Ellie Scotney. But that performance there the other night was a real pleasure to watch. And I have to say, like I just said, really, on paper would have been her toughest fight, but in reality was one of her easiest. She certainly made it look like that. She was that good. Very, very impressive from her. Yeah, brilliant performance. Also on the card, this was a massive shock. Harry Scarf now 13-4. In the other corner, Conor Walker now 15-3 with a draw. That one for the British and Commonwealth welterweight titles. Harry Scarf, I mean, I expected him to lose the fight. I did think Conor Walker's going to win. Conor Walker was the slight underdog. I could not understand why. I felt Conor Walker's style, in recent times, very, very aggressive. I think he had the style to catch the eyes of, the eyes of the judges. And I felt that he's going to probably outwork Scarf. But I did again say on last week's show, Harry Scarf is a very good boxer from, boxing off the back foot type of stuff. So, Harry Scarf, credit to him, because he was in full control. Some people gave him every single round until he got caught in the 11th round. He was down, he got back up, and then the referee waved it off in the end. He took too many clean shots after getting back up. Like, the referee waved it off. He wasn't really defending himself. A crazy turnaround of a fight there. At one point, I actually looked at the odds in play. You had to put £80 or $80 on Harry Scarf just to win $1 back. Just to win $1 or £1 back. That is crazy. That's how much he was in control. He was cruising. And, we know that Conor Walker can certainly punch much harder than his record suggests. But even at that stage in the fight, Scarf's got a good chin, good boxing IQ, didn't really get hit too cleanly all night. And then in the 11th round, just walked into it. And, that's a crazy, crazy turnaround. You won't see many more, dramatic turnarounds in boxing, period, than what we saw the other night. Credit to Conor Walker, who did not stop trying as well, but it's a tough place that Harry Scarf finds himself in, and Conor Walker, he won't want to fight Scarf again, that's for sure. He'll want to push on, and I cannot blame him, to be honest with you. Also on the card, we saw Dalton Smith. It was quick and easy, really. 17-0 now, a TKO for him in the first round against Walid Uiza, who's now 19-3, that one for the vacant EBU European and the WBC Silver Super Lightweight title. Weezer down twice prior to the stoppage. It was just a demolition job. It really was. It was an incredible performance from Dalton Smith. He just looked like a cheat code against Uiza, who I don't think is a good fighter by any stretch. I don't think he's obviously on the level of Dalton Smith. Dalton Smith just went for him truly like a hot knife through butter. Just completely annihilated him in a round. And for that to be for the European title, in hindsight, was a little bit, I don't want to say embarrassing, but it's nothing to do with Dalton Smith. He's going to beat who's in front of him. But to get that opportunity to fight that guy for the European title, he would have been crazy to have not took that fight. But now he's the European champion, didn't add any miles on his clock the other night. And yeah, he would have had probably 15, 20 harder spars in the build-up to this fight in the camp, itself. Every spar would have been tougher than that the other night. So, like I say, that's the point I'm trying to make. It was just a walk in the park for Dalton Smith. He'll be ready to fight again next weekend if it was up to him. Again, we need a big 2025 for Dalton Smith. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think 2024 he was that active. So I'd like to see him push on now. He's got a fight out the way early in the year. He's got the European title. Let's see what comes next for him. Moving now then to the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. This was the final card to mention of the review part. Let's start on the undercard over here. It was live on DAZN again, so there was a lot of boxing on Saturday night on DAZN. Ernesto Mercado, friend of the show, now 17-0. Another knockout for him. He's got 16 KOs, a TKO for him in the fourth against Jose Pedraza, now 29-7 with a draw. I did say I think we'd see some rounds here. I actually bet on, I think it was something like over 3.5 rounds or over 2.5 rounds, which was decent odds actually, because the bookies really felt it was going to end nice and early. It did end early, like I say, 4th round, but I was able to get, to land the bet basically. It was part of a parlay / accumulator. But yeah, Ernesto Mercado, very impressive. As for Jose Pedraza, I do think now he should hang them up. I've always admired him. He's got nothing to prove at all, and he was just simply outgunned by the younger fighter the other night, and it was a little bit sad to see. He did try to tough it out in true Pedraza style. Nothing surprised me there, but yeah, Mercado was just too strong, hit too hard, and didn't really have any respect for the former champion. Just went in there and tried to make a statement and did make a statement. Pedraza took some big body shots, took some big head shots, everything. He just was no match really for Mercado. So yeah, that should be the end of the road for Pedraza. Hopefully he's made enough money. I'm sure he probably has, and invested it wisely. So all the best to him. Hopefully he does decide to walk away. I haven't heard anything yet though. Andy Cruz on the card as well, 5-0 now, a unanimous decision against Omar Kamez, who's now 20-2. That one for the IBF International Lightweight title. Yeah, dominating performance really from Andy Cruz. A unanimous decision over 10 rounds. And then the main event, again, not many people expected this one to go the distance, but Diego Pacheco now 23-0, a unanimous decision over Steven Nelson, now 20-1. He's lost his O. That one for the USA WBC super middleweight title and the WBO International super middleweight title. Didn't see all of this fight in all honesty, but yeah, it took Steven Nelson, I think, quite a while to get going. And he had a little bit of success towards the end of the fight, but Pacheco did enough early, really, and didn't lose, like a bunch of rounds late. Like he did enough early, and it was competitive late, and he had it in the bag, from early on in the fight, really. Diego Pacheco. Steven Nelson, again, not entirely sure where he goes from here. Nice guy, respectable guy. I liked what he said after the fight in the interview that I did see. Yeah, he seems like a nice guy, to be honest with you. So all the best to him. But obviously it's a defeat at the hands of Pacheco, who gets another scalp on his resume, picks up some more experience and moves on. Right, I've whizzed through the review part on my own there. The final thing for us to do now in this part is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the super lightweight knockout artist himself. It is, of course, Mr. Gary Antuanne Russell. Gary, welcome back on the show.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
I always appreciate having you on, Gary. It's always my pleasure. So we last spoke back in May. At the time, you were getting ready to fight Alberto Puello. We haven't spoke since that fight. Let's start with that. Obviously, you lost for the first time as a pro. Talk me through the fight, Gary. For me, it was one of the biggest upsets of 2024.
It was. Every fight that's lost is an upset, but me personally, coming off the knockout streak that I was on, odds was definitely on my favor. And yes, it was an upset. I want to say simply, I deviated from the game plan. If I had to tell you all what happened behind the scenes, it was just some people that was discrediting me. I didn't take it too well. It was just saying that I'm one-dimensional, basically, compared me to a fighter that is one-dimensional. And I took offense to it. I basically was telling them, like, nah, I don't fight like him. I got more skills than him. Don't disrespect me, in a sense. Not taking away anything from the person that they compared me to, but I feel like it was disrespectful for the person to say, oh, man, you fight like him. No, I don't fight like him. Thank you, but no thank you for your credit. I got more skills. So if you pay attention to the fight, I was dominating round 1 through 6. Then I want to say, like at the end of round 6, I started taking off just to show that I can do it multiple ways. I'm multifaceted and in my style, my craft, and it would still be entertaining. And I feel like me doing that kind of made it too competitive to the point. They just said, hey, let's get these rounds to him. It was competitive. No one never lasted this long with Russell. So let's give him his props. And it cost me the fight. It's equivalent to Mike Tyson knocking everybody out and somebody comes along and lasts the fight with Mike Tyson. They're going to look at this guy as like the stuff. He lasted all 12 rounds with the most feared man in boxing. So it's kind of like it worked against me. But I would never let that happen again. I would never let the judges take the decision out of my hands.
Gary, if you don't mind me asking, who was the fighter you were compared to?
Oh, wow.
If you don't mind me asking. If you don't want to answer that, I'll never pressure you to answer anything.
It was actually Shawn Porter.
Wow.
Like I said, not taking away from him, but I feel like he is one-dimensional. And I got more skills than him. No disrespect to him and how he do things, but I feel like that's just what it is. That's just what it is.
I get that.
I know that I'm a pressure fighter or like a pressure puncher, but I can go from pressure fighter to boxer puncher to skill to like slick. I can do it. I feel like I never had to go into my arsenal and show those type of skills based off of the opponents that I had in front of me. Once before, someone told me, you don't take a hammer out of your tool bag to screw some screws in. You get a Phillips screwdriver. You don't need no chainsaw. So take out what's necessary.
I understand. I love, by the way, a Gary Russell analogy, as you know. I want to ask you as well, obviously, in that fight with Puello, so do you put that down to, like, a mental block with yourself rather than anything Puello did physically on the night?
Right.
Okay.
And honestly, I want to say, sorry to cut you off, I want to say I still did enough to beat him.
Right.
I feel as though he didn't do enough to win those rounds. Did he survive? Yes, he survived. Did he get beat down as bad as he did in the early rounds? No, but he didn't do any punctuating himself. Last time I checked, landing no punches don't win rounds.
Gary, does the rematch need to happen, or do you not care so much about avenging the loss?
It needs to happen. It needs to happen. I don't care if he lose to Sandor Martin. I don't care if I'm undisputed. I would still go tree shaking and say, hey, it's Alberto Puello, you want the opportunity again?
Yeah. I love that because sometimes, we see a guy take a loss and then he goes every other route to try to avoid having that rematch. I love what you're saying there. You're interested in that at any point, regardless of the belt situation. That's very refreshing. We love that. Let's move on though, rather than sticking in the past. I didn't mean to go into it for that long. Your upcoming fight, March the 1st in Brooklyn, you'll be boxing Jose Valenzuela for his WBA world title. Now, Valenzuela has shown in recent times he can adapt in fights. He's got good feet. He's got a decent ring IQ. What do you know about him, Gary? What have you seen? I think you muted yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I said I know that he's going to come in shape. He got some punching power in one hand. Do he have it in both? No, I don't believe he has it in both. But he's more skilled than a lot of the fighters that in the weight division that he comes from, because he's moving up from 35 to 40. When he fought Isaac Cruz, he outskilled Isaac Cruz, and it showed some type of flexibility in his adaptation. Him being an adapt, he's showing a lot of flexibility in that area, and I'm happy for him. But I know for a fact that I'm not an Isaac Cruz or anybody else that he done went up against and became victorious over. He bit off more than he could chew with me, I believe.
Yeah, I cannot wait for this fight. I'm really excited for it. So do you see it as an easier or tougher fight than Puello?
I would say easier because naturally when you're fighting tall, longer opponents, you got to work harder to get inside, close the distance, and be effective versus having someone that's your height, same arm length, and, kind of have a style that's more of a puncher boxer versus running around a ring, trying to keep me at bay.
And I want to ask you this as well, Gary. The newest world champion at 140 right now is Richardson Hitchens. What are your thoughts on him?
I really got no thoughts on him, He did what he did to get the belt. I really don't care about any other potential opponent. My main objective is to wipe out my division, become undisputed. But first I got to make sure that I'm handling what's in front of me, and that's Venezuela. I get that belt, immediately I'm going to unify.
That's the aim, to unify before the year's out, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Why not keep the entertaining going?
I love that. How soon then do you think we could see the Puello rematch? I mean, obviously you say, he's in a tough test against Martin, who I actually felt deserved to have got the decision against Teofimo Lopez a while back. But if he were to win, if he were to keep his belt, which I'm sure you probably want him to do, it makes the rematch bigger. How soon do you think we could see you and Puello getting it on as a unification rematch?
It really doesn't matter. It can be immediately, or it can be after someone else is, attempted to take his belt, and he defended it victoriously. Doesn't matter.
And Gary, the main event on the card, obviously you're boxing on the undercard. The main event, Gervonta Davis, Lamont Roach. Who have you got winning that fight?
Man, that's a stiff fight, to be honest. It's going to be entertaining. I know that for sure. You got Gervonta Tank Davis that's known for his explosiveness. A lot of fighters, they naturally say, oh, he lose the fight up until he landed one big shot. Okay, granted, yes, he get touched and play possum all the way up until he finds that soft spot. But at the end of the day, he's victorious. And he's winning by knockouts. Can't take that away from him. Ain't too much you can say about that. He is skilled. He does have some punching power. The only flaw that works against him that he has is that he can't start too late in the fight. He can't start off giving the fight away. Lamont Roach, he's skilled. He's the underdog, but he also get understated. He's an understatement. Okay, coming into the fight out of shape or not in the right mind space, you will lose because he's gonna make you look like a fool.
Yeah.
He got enough skills to last with Tank. I'm pretty sure he's gonna come in shape, and he's gonna make sure that he's focused, to the best of his ability. And with that remedy, I feel like he does have a chance. He's not known to be a big puncher, but he can get your attention. He will grab your attention with some of these shots, especially with these little 8-ounce gloves on.
Yeah, for sure. The last time I spoke to your brother, Gary Allen Russell, last time I spoke to him was about 3 years ago, this month, I think it was. And when we last spoke, he was talking at the time to me about wanting to fight Gervonta Davis. Obviously, we never saw it, but are the Davis, not the Davis family, are the Russell family cool with Gervonta at the minute, or?
Man, we watched them grow up. We fought in numerous tournaments together. So it's not like it's any beef or animosity that's there. Anything that can be taken as animosity, honestly, genuinely, is coming from just a warrior mentality. We are fighters, and when you're in a profession that we're in, that we participate in, eventually you're going to want to fight the best, because everybody that participates in the sport, they're looking at themselves as the best. And if you classify yourself as the best, the only way that you can really gauge yourself as the best or how good you are is going against the best. The ones who have the titles, the ones who have the resume. And in history, he's been in fights jumping like catch weights, jumping from 135 to 40, or 130 jumping up to 135, fighting bigger guys. So it was kind of like he was waddling the line between my weight division and my older brother's division, and Gary Russell Jr., Mr. Gary Russell. So it was a lot of talk about, hey, do you two think that y'all would be a good fight, a matchup? Do y'all think that it would be one-sided fight? How do you feel about Gervonta Davis being in your division? All of these type of things, So I feel like that just came from us being competitive. I feel like everything is just centered around what we do.
I understand that. And obviously, it's been some time now. It's a tough question, this, really, but it's been some time now. Is there still a missing piece in the gym in terms of your father? Is that hole still there?
The hole will always be there.
Yeah, I understand that.
That hole will always be there. Reason why, one of the main reasons, because now that he isn't there, we have to fill that void by not allowing these teachings, the gifts, and the glimpse of greatness that he done showed us. We cannot let that go in vain. We cannot waste that. We have to honor not just my father, but everything that my father stood for, and etc.
Yeah, well said. Fantastic, man. And just briefly, before we wrap things up, Gary, if you've got any closing words to the listeners, just before we let you go, you can say whatever you like. I'm a massive fan of the Russell family philosophy. If you've got any nuggets of wisdom, drop them. Say whatever you like. I'm just excited to hear you sign out on this interview.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for those who lack inspiration internally, you have everything. The more you believe within what you have, your abilities, I feel like the doors will open. But you can't be discouraged when things aren't going your way, or you find yourself in a position of the unknown.
There we go.
So
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go on.
I say the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit.
Beautiful, Gary. I love it every time. Listen, my friend, as always, the pleasure is mine. Thanks so much for your time. We'll speak again soon. Best of luck March the 1st. I can't wait to speak to the new champion of the world next time.
Yes. I love it. Thank you, young man. Once again, I appreciate for extending the hand to me and allowing me on your show. Talk to you soon.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Just one piece of news to break. I'd say break. I mean, it's about a week old now, really. But by the time last week's show went out, it hadn't yet been released. So yeah, we're gonna see it. We're gonna see it, Eddie. April the 12th. My apologies. At the Boardwalk Hall in AC, Jaron Ennis steps in the ring with Imantis Stanionis in a unification there for the IBF, WBA and Ring Magazine welterweight world titles. talk to me about that one briefly, Eddie. This is a tough fight. Stanionis is a big underdog. I'm very surprised to see he's as big an underdog as he is. A lot of people are picking him to win.
Man. It's going to be a tough fight for Boots. I mean, if you look at especially the recent performance with I don't want to keep calling him Karen, even though that's his name. You know what I mean? I don't want to make it like a joke, but I think he's a lot better fighter than what people gave him credit for. So it doesn't necessarily say anything about Boots and what I think about him going forward. But this fight, still, because of the experience, because of the ability, this is just not going to be an easy task. You know what I mean? Just getting by this kid. So, I mean, but I do expect Boots to be able to go and win it. I know a lot of people are picking Stanionis, but I still expect him to be, now that he's in with a better name opponent, someone who's been, somewhat of a marquee name, not necessarily, a grand, marquee name like a Terrence Crawford or somebody like that, but still someone who's been in there with really, really high level competition and done well. However, I just think that Boots at this stage in his career, this is barring that he gets himself together, like from what happened in the last fight. And even though, and once again, it's somewhat kind of at home because it's not too far from Philly. It's going to be a lot of hometown cooking type situation, which once again can take your focus, which I don't like that. You know what I mean? I really don't. Sometimes it's better to fight on the road. I think most of the time it's better to fight on the road. It all depends on the fighter. But, Boots is pretty dedicated and disciplined and all of that when it comes to things. But it's just that his performances have been indicative of someone who is trying to do too much for the audience. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing all the time. It's just that I don't want, for his sake, that to be a situation that he does in a fight like this with a guy who's this dangerous. So, you can go from looking like the boogeyman to being a kitten, and it's just like that in boxing. So you don't want to put yourself in that kind of a position, because then you can lose out on opportunities, big fights that were, possibly going to be made or now gone, or, you know what I mean? But, so the important thing here is, and I'm saying this because I think, this is the best medicine for him to hear, is that just go in there and get the win the best way you can. Be the boxer that we know you can be, and take care of business, because if you don't, you get out there trying to do too much, you might end up being on the wrong end of it.
Either way, should be a really good fight. Really looking forward to that. April is shaping up nicely. Moving on then to the preview part of the show. This one goes down tomorrow, Friday the 31st of January in Moscow, Russia. We've got a guy called Muslim Gadzhimagomedov. Let me try that surname once again. Gadzhimagomedov. I'm probably saying it wrong, but anyway, 5-0 as a pro. He won a silver medal at the 2020 Olympic Games. Won a gold medal in 2019 in the World Games. And he's the current WBA Bridgerweight World Champion. Well, anyway, he's 5-0. He's actually having a non-title fight, a 10-rounder here against, cover your ears, Eddie, Tabiso Machunu, 23-7 these days. We don't like to mention his name on the podcast. It's a long story. Let's move on from Russia. Let's go now then to the Indigo at the O2 in Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. This one again tomorrow, Friday the 31st of Jan. It's going to be live on DAZN. It's a Matchroom boxing card, and it's probably the worst card Matchroom have ever staged, ever. It's a really bad card, I think, this one. It's a next-gen card, but it's poor. It really is. They've got great stable Matchroom, and I know it's just a next-gen card. It's just at the Indigo. I can't imagine that there's going to be much media presence for this level of fights, to be honest with you. But anyway, let's mention them. We've got George Liddard, 10-0. He's going to step up against Derek Asazi, who's 13-2. That's over 10 rounds. And also for the vacant English super welterweight title, a 10-rounder here between Junaid Bostan, 10-0, and Bilal Fawaz, who's 9-1. All the best to all those guys there. Moving now then to Saturday, the 1st of February, we have at the Wembley Arena in Wembley, London. It's going to be live on Sky Sports. We have Callum Simpson in a very quick turnaround. I think he was in the ring about 3 weekends ago. He's 16-0. He is boxing here, defending his Commonwealth super middleweight title against Elvis Ahorga, who's 13-2. I just want to look this guy up really briefly here. As we know, Callum Simpson was in the ring in the same... I was going to say the same month, but it's going to be February the 1st by the time he fights. But he boxed on January the 11th against Steed Woodall, got a second round TKO that fight where it was stopped a little bit too soon. Anyway, his opponent here, Elvis Ahorga, 13-2 with 12 KOs, so he can obviously punch. 2 losses. One was to Hassan Mwakinyo, who some people may remember stopped Sam Eggington in a shock performance many years ago now. But anyway, like I say, Callum Simpson on the card, always good to see him fight. He's got a sad story, he's a likeable guy. The main event is a decent fight. It's for the IBO Super Lightweight World title, the vacant belt. We're going to see Adam Azim, 12-0, stepping in with former champion and friend of the show, actually, Sergei Lipinets, 18-3 with a draw. I remember seeing Sergei Lipinets years ago in training. He was training for a fight, and they actually had tied him up with rope and tied the other end of the rope to a car. He was pulling a car along. He's got some interesting methods of training and stuff like that. He's a nice guy, Sergei Lipinets. We saw him beat Robbie Davies Jr. last time out. He does seem to, at this point, be quite a little bit past his best, and I'm expecting Adam Azim to probably manage to stop him, even though he's only been stopped once, and that was to Jaron Ennis almost 4 years ago now. But again, I'm expecting Adam Azim to have a little bit too much for Sergei Lipinets, but it will probably go a few rounds. I don't think you'll get him in the first half of the fight. It could be a late stoppage there. He's just going to be a bit too cute for him, I think. What else do we have? Let's move then to this one that goes down on Sunday at the Dort Financial Center in Flint, Michigan. This one's going to be live on DAZN. Clarissa Shields stepping up to heavyweight. I'm actually unable to tell you how many weight classes this is now. It's a bit too confusing, but this one's for the IBF, WBC, WBF, WBO. I'm not sure if the WBA is on the line as well, but a couple of the belts are vacant. It's over 10-2s here at heavyweight. 15-0 Clarissa Shields stepping in with Danielle Perkins, who's 5-0. All the best there to the GWOAT. Next Tuesday, again, I'm going to come back to the Saturday card, but I just wanted to get these smaller cards out of the way. But next Tuesday, which will be Tuesday the 4th of February at the Texas Theater in Nashville, Tennessee, we're going to have Oliver McCall back in the ring once again. 60 wins, 14 losses. He's back in a 6-rounder against Gary Cobia, who is 3-4. All the best there to Oliver McCall, who's still going at the ripe old age of 59. He's going to be 60 in April. His birthday is just a couple days before mine. Crazy stuff. Anyway, moving to that big card that, of course, you probably sensed we skipped over. It goes down on Saturday night at the T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada, live on Amazon Prime pay-per-view, Eddie. We're going to have to find a way to get through the back door on that one, because we cannot miss this for sure. We have on the card the young prospect that's got a lot of buzz about him, Kermel Moton. He's 6-0. He's back in an 8-rounder here against Frank Zaldivar, who's 5-1. We got Jesus Ramos Jr., 21-1, stepping in with Jason Rosario, the banana, 24-4 with 2 draws these days. That's over 10 rounds at Super Welter. I don't know if I like that fight, Eddie. I don't know if you like that fight. It's one of them fights, isn't it? I mean, you'd have to back Jesus Ramos to win. He's probably going to stop Banana Rosario. It's a little bit of a car crash fight, I'd say. But both men can bang.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm hearing it, I'm thinking exactly that. You know what I mean? But Jesus Ramos is a good young fighter. I really, even with Lubin, I thought, and I'm a real big Lubin fan, by the way. I just thought he was doing the better work. Lubin was doing some good things in the fight, but I liked what I saw from him. I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't happy that Lubin got the win, but it's just, I think this kid is he's not bad, you know what I mean, for being so young. And Bananas, you know, he had that big upset win. They got him noticed, and you know, ever since then, he just hasn't really captivated. You know, he hasn't really captivated me much, or I'm pretty sure the fans. And he's obviously not been in a good run necessarily right now, so I don't expect it to be any different. You know, he was a long shot to begin with, got a good victory, and 15 minutes of fame is up. I don't expect Jesus Ramos to fall short in this one. Could stop him. I wouldn't be surprised. He's been stopped with less than what Hope Ramos has. So yeah, there's a good chance of it. I'm definitely going to back Ramos to win. I'm not gonna. I'm leaning toward a stoppage, probably middle rounds. All depends on what banana we get in there. Is it a fully ripe banana, or is it overripe? You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Yeah, it's important as well to say that Banana has been stopped in all 4 of his losses. He's only 29 years of age, but again, I feel like he kind of, well, yeah, as you say, had his 15 minutes of fame. You know, I remember him upsetting the odds against Julian Williams. I believe, in the States when that fight took place at the time, or maybe I'd just gone back home. I remember being around, I'm sure I watched that, in the hotel when I was over there. But anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. But I remember him stopping Williams. It was a real shock. He'd lost, I think, every round of the fight, then managed to stop him and obviously become world champion. But yeah, that was 5 years ago now. And yeah, like I say, he was 24 at the time. Now he's 29, and he seems like he's put a lot of miles on the clock since then, for sure. Right, okay, moving up the card once again. Let's touch on this one. We have Isaac Cruz, 26-3 with a draw, stepping in with Angel Fierro, who is 23-2 with 2 draws. This one over 10 rounds at 140. Yeah. Isaac Cruz, I mean, I'm going to be very, very brief on this because I don't think we're going to have enough time to discuss this in full depth. But I'm not a massive, I mean, I like his style, Isaac Cruz, but I don't think he's like this fantastically good fighter or anything like that. I think, he's obviously a pressure fighter. He's got a really, really good chin, probably one of the best chins in boxing right now. But yeah, he's stepping in with a decent fighter in Fierro who can bang, who's got, I believe, a higher punch, a higher knockout, ratio and stuff like that. Thing is, both men are similar in ways. They can both be outboxed, but again, both guys are not really boxers. They're more sort of brawlers. So again, it could be an interesting fight. That one could be good viewing. Hopefully it is. One fight that I think has to be good viewing if it's going to be anything like the first fight is Brandon Figueroa, friend of the show, 25-1 with a draw, stepping in with Stephen Fulton, 22-1. Like I say, a rematch here, over 12 rounds for the WBC featherweight world title. The rematch is obviously at the weight above. The first fight was at super bantamweight. Yeah, again, really good fight the first time round. I think Brandon Figueroa threw about 1,000 punches in that fight. Brandon Figueroa, you may be surprised to hear, Eddie, is a massive favourite in this fight. I say massive. He's a decent sized favourite. So some people were saying, on social media, they're a little bit surprised about that, considering Fulton won the first fight. But I do think people are reading into what Fulton has looked like lately, and it has to be mentioned. It can't be ignored. He's coming off 2 pretty bad performances. Last time out was very lucky to have beaten Carlos Castro. He was down in that fight. The fight before that was when he got stopped against Inoue. You saw that fight. You were shocked at how ineffective he was. Brandon Figueroa, on the other hand, since that loss to Fulton, has looked pretty decent. He's 3 fights, 3 wins, 2 by KO. It took him a little while last time out to figure out Jesse Magdaleno. But yeah, he seems to be stronger at the weight, he says, and I feel like he's had enough time to right some wrongs and kind of fill into the weight a bit more. So it's going to be a really good fight, but I would have to favour Brandon Figueroa based on both men's form.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. You know what I mean? I'm still going to go with home team because, that's what you do, obviously. But, like we saw the first time, Scooter was able to kind of somewhat beat him at his own game a little by, staying there and, not necessarily just trading, but, punching with him at times, which was dangerous because we all know how aggressive and how, his punch count is ridiculous. And, and he's a really good pressure kind of fighter. So for Scooter to be able to stand in there and go back and forth, was impressive there. But like you said, if being at this weight, if it favors Figueroa more, you can't do that again. So now we have to figure out something new. We can't use old tricks. And being that they fought before, and it was a questionable, let's just say a disputed decision. A lot of people thought he won, and a lot of people thought Scooter won, but as it stands, I'm just hoping that the fight is just as good as the first one, and that Fulton is able to maybe add a different layer to what happened, to what he need, to what he is bringing in the fight this time, because like I said, those same tricks from the past is not going to work, especially if you haven't been looking great recently. And he's been has he been at this weight? Scooter been at this weight for the last few fights? I can't remember for sure.
No.
Oh, so he's coming up.
Well, obviously he boxed Inoue at 122, and then after that he moved up in his last fight against Carlos Castro. That's the fight he was down and very, very narrowly scraped it. Very controversial, I may add. Oh
wow, yeah. See, that's just, and then now you come up to this weight and you're not really looking good at it in the beginning. You know what I mean? There's no wonder that he's a bigger favorite. Looking at the recent form, looking at the trouble he's struggling obviously with this weight class and with guys that he should have beat before. Most people would have thought he would have beaten him pretty easily. So yeah, I mean I understand what they're what everybody's looking at makes sense. And this time I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of putting. Now if I was betting money, it's a little different story. But since I'm just betting with my heart, I guess I want to see Scooter be able to win it. You know what I mean, and get back to or continue winning ways and make this part of his career the resurgence, as opposed to looking like he's fell off. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm hoping that this is that resurgence. We'll see.
Yeah, again, like I say, both guys friends of the show. I think Stephen Fulton has changed his phone number, so he's a little bit hard to contact at the minute. But obviously we had Figueroa on the show a few weeks back. one thing that concerns me a little bit, I can't remember any of the tweets now, so don't ask me, but Stephen Fulton has tweeted a few things in the last sort of few weeks, maybe a couple months, that just suggests to me that maybe his head's not quite in the right place. Like a few kind of strange tweets, like maybe he's suffering a little bit mentally. That's just one thing I feel needs to be brought up. I don't expect you've seen those tweets, Eddie, and I can't remember right now what they were, but I definitely think it needs to be mentioned. Like, just little signs that maybe he's not quite at the races. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully he's fully fit, and that's physically and mentally. And hopefully we see a good fight. I can't see a way it's not going to be a good fight. Let's push on then to the main event. We're going to see who the best David is, Eddie. We've got David Benavidez, 29-0 with 24 KOs. We've got David Morrell, 11-0 with 9 KOs. Both men have had just one fight up at light heavyweight since moving up from super middle. And both men didn't look particularly fantastic in their respective fights either. David Benavidez was probably in with a tougher test, stepping in with Alexander Gvozdyk, going the distance, didn't look fantastic. But then David Morrell, he did not look good at all against Radivoj Kaladzic, who most people expected him to stop in a round or two. He ended up going 12 rounds with him, and Kaladzic, I remember at times, I think, was even clowning him a little bit, if my memory serves me, memory serves me right. But anyway, forget about all of that. It's just a thing worth noting that both men have only been at the weight for one fight each. It has got personal. It has spilled over the edge at times, I think, in the build-up. David Benavidez seems to be very emotional. I'm yet to see if that's a good or bad thing for someone like David Benavidez. I'd like to think that when he's annoyed, when he's angry, he's even more dangerous. But again, we've seen it work against people many, many times in the past. Great fight though, Eddie. I've been looking forward to this fight for such a long time. Ever since it got made, I'm so happy that it's here. Obviously, it's a pay-per-view card like we touched on. And the main reason for that is because of this main event fight. It's such a fantastic fight between two of the very best at the weight. Two of the very best really in boxing. They're just outside of the pound for pound list. These two guys. Maybe Benavidez is even in that top 10. But brilliant fight. I mean, this is, like I say, one of the best fights that could have been made in boxing. I just cannot wait to sit down and watch it on Saturday night. You know, even though the fight's probably not going to start till 5, maybe 5:30 a.m. UK time, I know there's not even one part of me is going to be sleepy. I'm going to be so charged up, to see that fight, because this is what I live for, these type of fights every weekend. I wish they were every weekend. This is Christmas for me. How do you see the fight panning out?
Man, I ain't gonna lie, I'm looking forward to it as well. Always like to watch David Benavidez fight, especially when it's a good challenge like this. Haven't really seen too much of David Morrell though, but I've heard things. I've seen a little. I've picked up a couple of fights, looking at a couple of fights, just to kind of brush up on what he's good at and things like that. But it is definitely an exciting thing, since he's turned pro. He's obviously been on a string of wins, obviously, but it's a step, I guess, in a hard direction, also in the right direction if you can win. But it's man, this might be a little further than he wanted to go. I'm not sure. David Benavidez is a boogeyman to a lot of and to a lot of people, a lot of fighters now. And I mean, considering that he moved up to this weight and actually fought a guy who could fight though. Like, regardless of what, and it's the same thing that kind of Terrence Crawford faced, I can't remember the guy's name right off the hand at this moment, but a guy who's a really good, talented fighter, that has a great amateur background, is a great fighter in general. And because they're not marquee names, you don't really respect the win because it was close. And it's like, you got to understand, these guys are good fighters, including the one that David Benavidez beat. Now, most people expected him to stop him and dominate and all of that, which he kind of did, but he didn't stop him. But he got the job done and won. And at the end of the day, that's the most important part. And just because he didn't get the stoppage in the fashion that most people expected, it's a bad performance. And I don't necessarily like that, because that is just basically saying that the fighter he fought, if that's the case, then maybe he shouldn't have been in the ring with him. You know what I'm saying? But he proved that he did, and that he was, and that he could, and he was able. You know what I mean? So the only person I think that just wiped Gvozdyk out was Artur Beterbiev, right? If I'm not mistaken.
He was, but I wouldn't say he wiped him out. It was a really competitive fight till about the 10th round.
Exactly. And that's another thing that I was just going to say. I'm glad you said it, Joe, that he actually was boxing well in that fight. So what I don't understand is why people are so quick. And this is just typical sports and boxing especially. They really forget. And this is why, and I look at myself, and of course I'm going to bring this up, but, and I told people, they were like, oh man, the fight you had with Adamek is, it was such a great performance and all of that. People are going to remember that you beat him with one hand and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, they're not. Most people didn't even see it. And the ones that did will remember, but they're also the ones that support Tomas will, we're going to say one thing, and then the people that support me are going to say another. There's a lot more to probably support Tomas. So what I'm saying is eventually it's going to be forgotten about, and all they're going to look at is the loss or the win. You understand what I'm saying? So, and that's what happens in this fight, in the fight with Beterbiev and Gvozdyk. But he was a good challenge. He did really well against another boogeyman. You understand what I'm saying? So you got to give credit where it's due. This guy, David Benavidez, is still a monster. Don't get it twisted. Just because he didn't destroy necessarily or get the guy out of there like everybody expected him to, he's still a monster. He's still very much a monster. So do not go to sleep and think that this fight, just because he didn't look so great. And that same thing goes for Morrell. Just because he didn't look great with the last fight, I mean, obviously it wasn't the same level of competition, but don't just expect it. Remember, styles make fights. Fights aren't fought on paper. They're fought in person. So, we got to see these two match up first before we make a decision. You can go off of what they've done, and I understand why people are making their decisions and what they're saying. But I'm still going to go with Benavidez. I think he's still very much that monster that a lot of people don't want to face. And, we'll see. We'll see how Morrell matches up and if he can do any of the good things he's done in his career against them. But it's going to be an uphill battle. I just got to be honest, and I really believe it's going to be a extremely difficult fight for Morrell. And I don't know if I'm not going to say whether he's going to get stopped or not. I don't even know if I've seen him hurt. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting fight, but a very tough one.
Again, I just must reiterate once again, it's just a brilliant, brilliant fight. You'd be crazy to miss this one. It's honestly going to be one of the best fights of the year. Like I've said, I'm just sounding like a broken record now. It is one of the best fights that can be made in boxing. David Benavidez, there's people picking against him. There's people picking for him. Morrell is a very, very, very special fighter. A very, very good Cuban fighter. And he's super exciting as well. So this is going to be a crazy fight. I can't see it being, not delivering. I can't see any way this fight's not going to be a really good fight. That's why I do think there's a few really good fights on the card. I think there's going to be some entertaining fights. We may even see a fight of the year contender, even though we're early into the year. But with Figueroa, with Benavidez, Morrell, and with Isaac Cruz, I think we're in for a treat on Saturday night. You'd be crazy to miss it. Don't miss it. Anyway, that brings the preview part to a close. It's now time for me to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 484 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive shout out to this week's special guest, the hard-hitting knockout artist at super lightweight, probably the hardest puncher at the weight, the top contender himself, Mr. Gary Antuanne Russell. Always fantastic having one of the Gary Russell brothers on the show. The biggest thanks of all goes out to you, the listeners. That is the same every single week. There has been one piece of news break whilst we've been recording the show, and it's that Mikaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan are officially having their rematch. Obviously, for the welterweight world title. The date is going to be March the 29th at the Blue Live Theatre in Fontainebleau, Las Vegas. It's going to be live on ESPN. On the undercard, we're also going to see a title defense for Brian Norman Jr. So, like I say, should be a decent fight there. And we all enjoyed, I think, the first fight between Sandy Ryan and Mikaela Mayer. So, yeah, I'm happy about this rematch being made. That brings everything now to a close, though. That is everything from me. Enjoy your weekends, people. I'm sure you will. There's a hell of a lot to sink your teeth into. And we'll see you all again same time next week.